Imagine an element that cannot be created in a laboratory, a metal that was not born on Earth, but in the heart of massive stars that collapsed into supernovae billions of years before our solar system even existed. When you hold a gold coin, you are holding this pure stardust. This is the starting point for us to understand why gold is not just a metal, it is a chemical anomaly that changed human behavior. Since the first human found a shiny nugget in a riverbed, something in our brain clicked. Gold has the shine of the sun, but unlike everything we know, it does not die. Silver tarnishes, iron rusts, copper turns green, but gold, it is eternal. If you take the gold that adorned an Egyptian pharaoh 4,000 years ago, melting and casting it again, it will shine with the exact same intensity. It does not lose a single atom to oxidation, and this physical immortality was interpreted by ancient civilizations as spiritual immortality. In ancient Egypt, gold was called nub. It was not just money, it was the flesh of the gods. The Egyptians believed that the gods had bones of silver and flesh of gold. That is why covering a pharaoh in gold was not a display of wealth as we see today, it was a metaphysical shield. They were trying to ensure that the essence of the king remained incorruptible in the afterlife. But while the priests prayed, Egyptian engineers were creating the first geological maps in history. They crossed scorching deserts to mine in the mountains of Nubia, developing purification techniques that we still use today, with cupellation used to refine gold. But how did we move from sacred temples to the coins that circulate in the market today? The transition happened in Lydia around 600 BC. Before that, trade was a chaos of weights and measures. You had to weigh gold in every transaction, and there was always the risk of someone mixing cheaper metals. King Croesus, a figure whose wealth became legendary, solved this by creating the first state standardization. He stamped the seal of a lion on pieces of gold with guaranteed weight, and at that moment, gold stopped being just a precious metal and became trust. The modern economy was born there. The Romans took this to an industrial level. They did not just mine, they altered geography. In Spain, Roman engineers used a technique called ruina montium, where they used water pressure to literally implode entire mountains in search of gold veins. And this was because the Roman Empire was a machine that ran on gold. With gold, regions were paid. Gold was the fuel of expansion. And here we see the first great lesson of geopolitics. Whoever controls the flow of gold controls the narrative of history. When Rome began to debase its coins, mixing copper to stretch the supply, a primitive form of printing money, inflation soared, and the empire began to crack from within. If you dilute gold, you dilute your authority. Moving forward to the Middle Ages, gold became the obsession of alchemists. They did not just want wealth, they sought the philosopher's stone, the ability to turn lead into gold. Today we laugh at this, but modern chemistry and medicine were born from this frantic search to understand the perfection of this metal. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ocean, civilizations like the Incas and the Aztecs accumulated colossal amounts of gold, but with a different vision. For them, gold was the sweat of the sun. They did not use it as currency, but as an aesthetic connection to the cosmos. The tragedy of the encounter between the old and the new world was the clash of these two visions, one that saw gold as a tool of power exchange and another that saw gold as divine beauty, and the result was the greatest flow of precious metals in history, which flooded Europe and permanently shifted the axis of global power. This leads us to the concept of backing. For centuries, the world lived on the premise that paper money was just a receipt. If you had a banknote, you had the legal right to go to the counter and demand your gold back. And this brought discipline to governments because they could not spend what they did not have. The gold standard was the anchor that enabled globalization. But the world wars began to change everything. Maintaining an army is expensive and gold is finite. So in 1944, when everything was still burning, the powers met in Bretton Woods. The agreement was simple. All currencies would be linked to the US dollar and the dollar would be linked to gold. The United States held most of the world's reserves and the world trusted them for a time. All of this worked. It was the golden age of post-war growth. But in the 1960s, the United States began printing too many dollars to finance the Vietnam War and its social programs. Countries like France realized what was happening and began sending shiploads of dollars back to America, demanding their gold in return. Until Nixon, who was the president at the time, did what became known as the Nixon shock. He closed the conversion window. The dollar was no longer gold, it was just paper backed by the full faith and credit of the American government. And gold was freed from $35, it jumped to the hundreds, and now in 2026 it challenges new levels. But why is it rising so much now? Why are central banks in China, Russia, India, and European countries buying gold at record levels as if they were preparing a siege? The answer lies in the geopolitics of distrust. In today's digital world, where money can be cancelled with a click or sanctioned through an international payment system, gold is the only asset that has no counterparty risk. It is not on a server, it is not a promise from a politician. It simply is. If the internet goes down, or if the banking system freezes, gold is still gold. And beyond that, gold has found a new purpose in this era of artificial intelligence. We are talking about one of the best conductors of electricity in the world that does not suffer corrosion. Every high-performance chip, every server that processes trillions of operations contains traces of gold, and we are moving from an era where gold was only stored in vaults to an era where it is a nervous system of cutting-edge technology. In this narrative, we will explore each of these pillars. Gold is a siderophile element, which means it has a natural affinity with iron. During the formation of the Earth, billions of years ago, when our planet was a sphere of molten rock, almost all gold should have sunk to the iron core, becoming inaccessible forever. If we depended only on the original gold from Earth's formation, we would never have found it. The gold we mine today arrived later, brought by a massive bombardment of asteroids that hit the already cooled crust. Every gram of gold in your hand is literally a residue of a cosmic impact. But it is not evenly distributed. Nature hides it in quartz veins or deposits it in riverbeds through erosion, creating what we call placer deposits. Modern geology, assisted by satellites and artificial intelligence in 2026, now searches for invisible chemical signatures. We no longer look only for shine, we look for thermal anomalies and gravimetric variations that indicate where ancient magma pushed gold to the surface. And to extract this metal, humans built the deepest structures in history. In South Africa, the Imponeng mine is a monument to human persistence. Imagine descending 4 kilometers straight into the Earth's crust. At that level, the pressure is so extreme that the rock can explode spontaneously, a phenomenon called rock burst. The natural temperature of the rock down there reaches 65 degrees Celsius. Modern mining in 2026 is no longer about pickaxes and dynamite, it is a robotic war operation. Autonomous vehicles operate in zones where the air is thin and the heat is unbearable for human lungs. To obtain just 1 ounce of gold, about 35 grams, mining companies must process and crush tons of solid rock. It is an absurd scale relationship. Mountains of stone are reduced to powder to extract a handful of metal, and this means the proof of work value of gold. It is expensive because the energy and human cost to obtain it is immense. Unlike digital or paper money, you cannot print gold. You have to move the world to find it, and once out of the ground, gold enters the laboratory. And here comes the science that fascinates engineers. The atomic number of gold is 79. Its electrons move at such high speeds, about half the speed of light, that relativistic effects come into play, and this is what gives gold its unique yellow color. While most other metals are silver-colored, gold is the most noble metal. It does not react with oxygen, it does not react with moisture, and it resists most acids. In a world where advanced technology demands precision at the nanoscale, oxidation is the #1 enemy. A copper contact can fail in a year, but a gold contact can last for centuries, and that is why, as we speak, gold is inside the processors that sustain global transactions, ensuring that electrical signals do not degrade over time. And now we enter a crucial concept for the economy: urban mining. Because gold is indestructible, it is estimated that almost all the gold ever mined in history still exists in some form. It is in gold bars, in vaults, in teeth, in jewelry, and increasingly in electronic waste. Today, 1 ton of old smartphones contains up to 80 times more gold than 1 ton of high-grade ore. The science of hydrometallurgy is evolving to extract this metal in a cleaner way, using bacteria or organic solvents that replace mercury and cyanide, which caused so much environmental damage in the past. Gold is becoming the center of a perfect circular economy. It is extracted, used in advanced technology, discarded, and then recovered with total purity. And of course, with the evolution of technology, asteroid mining has moved from science fiction to a strategic plan of corporations and nations. The asteroid Psyche 16, for example, contains precious metals in quantities that could theoretically flood the terrestrial market. However, science tells us that the value of gold lies in its accessible scarcity. Even if we know where gold is in space, the cost of bringing it here keeps its price stable. Gold acts as an anchor that prevents human ambition from detaching from physical reality. It is the limit of our expansion, and here we can think of gold as a battery of time and energy. Each gram of gold represents thousands of liters of diesel, megawatts of electricity, and thousands of hours of human labor. When you invest in gold, you are not just buying a metal, You are buying a portion of physical energy frozen in time, and it is this scientific base that supports the geopolitics we see. Without the difficulty of mining and the perfection of its chemistry, gold would be just another commodity. Speaking of geopolitics, twice a day in London there is a ritual that seems taken from a novel. The London Gold Fix. The largest banks in the world meet to balance buy and sell orders. And why London? Because there are the underground vaults that hold most of the commercial gold on the planet. When the price is fixed, it is not just a number on a screen. It is the reflection of global anxiety. If gold rises, the world is afraid. If gold falls, the world is optimistic or perhaps just distracted. But in 2026, this price has surpassed historic levels because the market stopped seeing gold as a commodity and started seeing it as the only emergency exit in a burning building. And here we enter one of the most controversial and vital topics of today. There is today much more gold being traded in financial markets than physical gold existing in vaults. This is what we call the derivatives market. Many people buy ETFs or futures contracts believing they own metal, but in reality they own a promise linked to the price of the metal. In a scenario of extreme crisis, if all holders of paper gold demanded physical delivery at the same time, the system would collapse instantly. There is not enough metal for all contracts. In 2026, we are seeing the phenomenon of physical delivery. Large investors are withdrawing their bars from banks and moving them to private custody because they understand that if you cannot touch your gold, you do not really own it. Gold is a strange asset because it does not generate interest. If you hold a gold bar, it produces nothing, it simply exists. That is why in times of prosperity, people prefer stocks or bonds that pay returns. But the calculation changes when currencies lose value. When inflation erodes purchasing power, the opportunity cost of holding gold drops drastically. And in 2026, with national debts reaching astronomical levels, gold has become the unit of measurement of disorder. It has not risen because it improved, it has risen because paper currencies have worsened. Gold is a mirror that reveals the devaluation of everything around it. And of course, we cannot talk about markets without looking at the East. In India and China, gold is not just an investment, it is the foundation of family stability. In India, families are estimated to hold more than 25,000 tons of gold in jewelry. That is 3 times more than the reserves of the United States government. For an Indian farmer, gold is the bank, the health insurance, the retirement, everything is in gold. And in these cultures, during weddings and festivals like Diwali, the price of gold in London can fluctuate simply because millions of people in Mumbai decide to buy jewelry. Gold is the democratization of wealth. It does not require a bank account, a password, or government permission to be held. Over the decades, many theories have emerged about price manipulation by central banks to maintain the strength of the dollar. Although this is speculative, the fact is that gold is the direct competitor of state money. We can understand that gold behaves in a counter-cyclical way. When stock markets fall, gold usually rises. It is the insurance you hope never to use, but are glad to have when disaster strikes. And in this year, investor psychology is cautious. The market is returning to fundamentals, and gold is the foundation of everything. In 2026, there is another race, the race for artificial intelligence supremacy. This is not just about software, it is about hardware. Processing chips, advanced GPUs, and quantum processors operate under conditions that would destroy ordinary materials. Gold is used in contact points and bond wires that connect chips to their packaging. Why gold? Because it can be stretched into microscopic wires without breaking, and most importantly, it does not oxidize. Its reliability is critical. In a data center processing trillions of operations per second, even minimal corrosion would cause catastrophic errors. Gold ensures that the flow of electrons remains pure and stable for decades. Without gold, artificial intelligence systems would degrade quickly. The major technological tension of this time is that industrial demand for gold is competing directly with central bank demand. Every gram used in jewelry or stored in vaults is a gram not used in medical chips or satellites. This is forcing technology companies to become urban miners, developing processes to recover gold from old circuit boards with near total efficiency. For years, the world debated whether Bitcoin would be gold 2.0. In 2026, that debate reached a clear conclusion through what analysts call the Great Decoupling. Bitcoin established itself as a digital financial infrastructure, while gold reaffirmed its role as a geopolitical shock absorber. In a year marked by cyber tensions and fragile infrastructure, the market remembered that gold does not need electricity. Bitcoin is the future of transactions, gold is the present of preservation. We are living what many call a silent monetary reset. With global debt reaching levels that simple math cannot resolve, gold is being used by central banks as a tool of rebalancing. If you divide all currency in circulation by existing gold reserves, the value of gold would be close to $10,000. The market is trying to close that gap. Gold is not becoming more valuable. Fiat systems are revealing their true scale against it. Although we have not returned to a classic gold standard, gold has become a vote of confidence in emerging sovereign digital currencies. Countries that hold gold have stability, those that do not face volatility. But gold is more than economics, it is philosophical. In a world of deepfakes, virtual realities, and digital assets that can be created or destroyed instantly, humans crave something tangible. Gold is our link to physical reality. Looking far into the future, in 5,000 years or more, currencies may disappear and borders may change. But the gold that exists today will remain exactly the same in structure and appearance. It will outlast humanity and our technologies. It is the mineral archive of civilization.